This is 432 Park Avenue, 1,396 feet tall, a 93-foot square base, the most extreme slenderness ratio ever built in New York City. $3.1 billion in sales, the repair bill $160 million. How does a building that thins stay upright in Midtown Manhattan wind? What actually happens to a skyscraper's plumbing elevators and electrical systems when the tower they run through never stops moving? If the engineers knew this shape would cause problems, why did construction continue, and who ends up paying the $160 million repair bill when the developer has already walked away with $900 million in profit? To understand how all of that happened, you have to go back to the beginning and the single decision that made every one of those questions inevitable. When 432 Park Avenue launched sales in 2013, the numbers were unlike anything the New York market had seen. 142 units, projected sellout of $3.1 billion, the highest aggregate sales price ever recorded for a single building in New York City history. The architect was Raphael Vignoli, one of the most celebrated names in contemporary design. The address was Park Avenue and 57th Street, one block from Central Park at the geographic center of global wealth. Buyers included Saudi retail magnates, hedge fund managers, and celebrities willing to pay $20 million, $30 million, $80 million for a floor in the sky. The building itself was a record on the day it opened. At completion in 2015, 432 Park was the tallest residential tower in the world, taller than anything built for people to live in anywhere on the planet. The engineering team had solved or appeared to have solved every problem that came with building a 93-foot square tower to nearly 1,400 feet. Open mechanical floors every 12 stories to let wind pass through. Dual concrete tube construction, one tube inside another, walls up to 30 inches thick at the base. The developers announced it as proof that New York could still build the most extraordinary things in the world. Slenderness is not a problem you solve. It's a bill you defer. That was the plan. Here's what the physics actually delivered. A tower that cannot stand still. For most of the history of tall buildings, engineers respected a rough ratio. A residential tower's height should not dramatically exceed 10 times its base width. The rule existed not because of aesthetics, but because of physics. A wider base distributes wind load across more mass. It keeps the sway within the range that human bodies tolerate without noticing. It keeps pipes straight and elevator shafts aligned. At 432 Park, the base is 93 feet wide. The tower is 1,396 feet tall. That is a slenderness ratio of roughly 1 to 15, among the most extreme ever attempted for a residential building anywhere in the world. The economic logic was simple. The highest floors commanded exponentially higher prices. A penthouse view above Central Park could sell for 10 times the price of a unit 20 floors below. The spreadsheet rewarded height stacked on the smallest possible footprint. The physics sent a different invoice. Wind striking a square tower at this slenderness does not simply push. It wraps around the edges, separates and sheds alternating vortices, spinning pockets of air that push and pull the building sideways in a rhythmic cycle. Picture balancing a pencil on its eraser and pointing a fan at it. The pencil does not snap, it oscillates. At 1,396 feet, that oscillation is felt by the people inside. The engineering team's primary countermeasure was a hollow mechanical floor, every 12 stories, open levels that allow wind to pass through the building rather than press against it. It was a genuine piece of engineering ingenuity. Wind tunnel tests conducted before groundbreaking had flagged the vortex shedding risk at this slenderness ratio. The white concrete exterior of 432 Park is not a facade. It is a load-bearing exoskeleton, the structural skin that carries the weight and lateral forces of the entire tower. After completion, the exoskeleton began experiencing wind forces beyond what the design had accounted for. The concrete started cracking not in isolated spots but across the full 330,000 square foot surface. Court filings from April 2025 describe thousands of severe cracks, spalling and deterioration, including a crack 10 inches deep inside the building's structural core. Water has infiltrated those cracks and begun corroding the steel reinforcement inside the concrete columns. When steel corrodes inside concrete, it expands, pushing the surrounding concrete apart from within, accelerating the very cracking it entered through. Independent structural engineer Steve Bongiorno described the endpoint chunks of concrete, fall off windows, loosen elevators, fail pipe joints, break water leaks everywhere. Professor Jose Torrero of University College London called the level of deterioration in a 10-year-old building highly unusual for a structure of this age and scale. Estimated repair cost $160 million over 3 years. Then it gets worse. What $17 million buys you when 73% of the systems weren't built to plan? A skyscraper is not just a structure, it is a vertical city, thousands of feet of water pipes, elevator cables, electrical conduit, HVAC ducts fire, suppression lines and trash chutes running the full height of the tower. When the building sways, the structure moves. The systems strain. Joints that were never designed to flex begin flexing, and then they fail. A study commissioned by residents found that 73% of the mechanical, plumbing and electrical infrastructure was not constructed according to the original building plans. Not a few deviations, nearly 3/4 of every system keeping the building alive. That figure did not come from a developer disclosure, it came from an engineering firm the residents paid to find out what the developer had not said. The incidents followed a pattern. In 2016, the buyer of an apartment on the 84th floor reported a catastrophic flood that damaged units on the 83rd and 86th floors. A subsequent buyer pulled out entirely. In November 2018, a leak at a mechanical floor knocked 2 elevators out of service for several weeks and damaged 35 apartments. On October 31, 2019, a resident was trapped inside an elevator for an hour and a half. The shaft had shifted out of alignment during high winds. In summer 2021, the entire building was evacuated for 2 full days for emergency electrical repairs. Residents described a ghostly whistle of rushing air through doorways and elevator shafts whenever wind picked up. The trash chute created pressure pulses so violent that residents at a 2019 unit owners meeting compared the sound to a bomb going off whenever someone on an upper floor dropped garbage. Objects slid off countertops during high wind events. Metal partitions groaned as the building swayed, creaking, banging, clicking at all hours. Serena Abramovich, a businesswoman with an enviable fortune, didn't hesitate to spend $17 million on a high-rise apartment here. "I was convinced this would be the best building in New York," she told The Times. And here is the part nobody wants to answer. The architect's own firm sent the warning in 2012. 3 years before the building opened, Jim Hare, a director at Raphael Vignoli Architects, sent an email to the project team. His assessment was plain: the developers were going down a dangerous and slippery path that would eventually lead to failure and lawsuits. At roughly the same time, an engineer at WSP sent a separate warning about the white concrete color or cracks. Engineers recommended adding fly ash to the concrete mix to reduce cracking risk. That recommendation was rejected. Fly ash would have changed the color. Mock-up tests before construction began showed the chosen material would crack under load. The building went up anyway, and all of it traces back to one decision. When the cracking became visible after completion, WSP sent a letter to the New York City Department of Buildings that allegedly misrepresented the nature and extent of the damage, failing to disclose a survey that had identified 1,893 defects. The offering plan was quietly amended. Language stating the concrete will prevent water penetration was changed to designed to prevent water penetration. One word: enormous legal difference. CIM walked away with an estimated $900 million in profit. The repair bill falls on the condo board. The fix: he proposed yacht paint for a $3.1 billion tower. One color choice. $160 million on the condo board. Nobody who made that call is writing the check. The lawsuits are not under negotiation. The building is, and the people negotiating it are not the ones who made the decision. There are two ways to read 432 Park Avenue. The first, a genuine engineering achievement. A 1,396-foot tower that has stood for 10 years, survived high winds, and housed some of the world's wealthiest residents without a single structural collapse. The second, a building with 1,893 documented defects, steel reinforcement corroding inside its load-bearing columns, concrete hand grenades loosening above a midtown sidewalk, and a $160 million repair bill being paid by the people who bought units, not the people who built them. Nobody who made the decision to bull forward in 2012 is being asked to justify it today. Would you have approved this project, or would you have walked away when the first engineer sent the warning? Central Park Tower, 4 blocks west, 1,550 feet tall, is still carrying $270 million in unsold units in 2025. The engineers on that building face the same physics. The lawyers haven't been called yet. You just don't know when that changes. The project you just watched took years to fail publicly. The next one on this channel took longer and cost more. Subscribe, because by the time it makes the news, it's already too late. Comments are open. Name your city.